Okay, now it should work. So, welcome. The only sentence I know in Russian is na zdrowie. Like the same, it's in Polish. I tried to speak English at the airport, it didn't work out. I tried to speak Polish, it goes with the same result. So, how many of you are automating the tests currently? Okay. How many of you are using Selenium or WebDriver for it? Good. And how many of you try to do security testing?
A little bit, but manually.
Okay. How many of you would like to start doing the security testing? That's good. So the presentation I want to do for you today is about the test automation with addition of the security scanning. So it's based on using the WebDriver automation and adding security scanner on top of it or behind it as a proxy. So to give you a bit of the background, so I was a quality coach and security tester at New Voice Media. So we were doing cloud call center solution, and I was responsible for the part which was handling card payments. Like, I didn't met it before in Poland, but in the UK it's very popular that people are paying for many things using like their telephone, not like through a web app or something like this. It's like you're in a call with an agent, and agent just transfers you to automatic IVR system, which collects the DTMFs you put into your through your keyboard on a phone, and then there's an automatic system asking you for your card number, expiry date, CCV code, and it makes the payment on a gateway similar way as on a web browser. And we were building that stuff for New Voice Media. I'm switching like from Monday after the conference, and I'll be working on Objectivity. This is still British company, this is a software house. And I will be like a testing consultant for them and a security community leader. So I'll be still responsible for the security testing of their applications. And my background from the security and testing perspective. So I was working 8 years around the functional testing of the software. For 4 last years, I was working in a PCI DSS compliant environment. So this is like a certification that the application you are building is allowed to collect PCI data. So this is like payment card identity data. So you can collect those all card numbers, card holder names, and other stuff, and then cooperate with the gateway to make the payments. I was a PCI team product owner for some point of time, so I was not only the technical person delivering that, but was also working from the business perspective. Was responsible for dealing with the customers, with the problems that they had, and the solution that they require. Currently, I work mostly on design on functional and security testing with my development team, so I'm not like doing hands-on approach on testing myself. I'm helping my team to make the better solution for things that we build on. How we could design mock services around it, how we can run unit tests or doing the reviews on the test data that they have on unit and integration tests, or how we can automate the functional test around it. And also I'm cooperating with other feature teams around building an environment where can they try to do as a brief start of the security testing, because the plan for the organization was to make a PCI compliance for the whole call center solution, not only the payment module. And that's why I'm also like designing the test harness, so the whole stack of automation tools that we can use, how to use them, and how to run all those tests that are required through it. And I'm also doing that testing consulting. This is something that I work on last 2 years with the Objectivity company to like build a totally different way of working through the test division. So they're a software house, and we made a proposition that we could create a new type of tester who will be like technical support for sales activities to the outside customers. So from all of you who are currently testers, there's like a lot of possibilities how you can push your career forward. You can go through whatever paths you want to. There's no limitation on it. You can even create your own future job as you want to. And from my personal life, I'm very, very amateur triathlon sportsman. So in Poland, we've got a saying that this is currently like a habit there, that if you want to plan your day well, you should start some sports, because when you start training for sports, you make the time for all the training activities, so you manage your time better. And I choose triathlon. I don't look like a sport athlete, but I finished few of them, like mountain triathlons and like really road triathlons. It's really great stuff. You can test yourself, your skills, and stuff like this. So what we got on an agenda today? The first thing I will say is why the security is important, why I want to help you build like a list of arguments to start do security testing in your own projects, how you can use test automation. Most of you were raising the hands that you're already doing the test automation, so maybe we will do that part a little bit shorter. I will show you an example of a security scanner. We will use OWASP ZAP for it. There is like a similar one which is a burp suit. And at the end we just talk about a combination, how you can combine both of those tools to have like a high level of security testing done automatically on top of your existing automation. So starting with why security is important. So it's starting to be a very important topic on most of the conferences or discussions that are currently happening, because there's so much data that is stored online. Who of you use like social media on daily basis?
Everybody.
Have you ever heard about a site that was called Please Rob Me? There was a site that was like a funny joke. There was a site in which you could provide your home address, and it was highlighting to the robbers when you are not at home and they can rob your house. There was literally many people using it, and it was integrated with the APIs with Facebook, with Instagram, with Twitter, and based on the location you make under your post, it was assuming that you are not at home. So for example, when I'm tweeting that I'm on Moscow TestCon, it's putting a light at top of my house, but I use a different address, that I'm not at home and this house can be robbed. And in the UK, there were several groups of robbers who were actually using that application. They got caught at some level, but still, that's first not awareness of security that might hit you. Who of you use online banking when you make the transfers and other stuff? How often you've got like a pop-ups at the top, please do not trust any emails you get or any other data. This is how the financial industry might got hit by it. How many of you are buying on e-commerce? Using like credit cards and all other stuff. There was like a history on Amazon in the US. There was a lady who was pregnant, and she switched the kind of groceries or other articles that she was buying on Amazon, and they've got the first AI prototype in their web shop, and they sent congratulations to her husband that he's becoming a father, but nobody realized that he didn't know, even the lady didn't know that she was pregnant, and they made a lawsuit against Amazon in the US, and they won. They got a big amount of money, and Amazon got banned for using that AI. That was the first prototype of AI that Amazon was trying to use at their shop. And the thing was that they moved it to production before going through all the legal agreements, and they got banned on it. How many of you has access to like a online history of your medical stuff? In Poland, it's quite popular. There's like a project, healthcare.gov, that was Obama was pushing in the US, and they got a lot of problems with it. Do you know Donald Trump? Probably all of you do. Do you know that he's the only guy who can make a tweet and can affect like economy in a different country? Like when he was tweeting that they will drop rockets in Syria, there was like change of the currencies in few countries in Europe. This is like the power of the Twitter of a guy who is like US president. Imagine what would happen if his account get hijacked. Because he's like the only president in the US in the history that is using Twitter and doesn't have like somebody taking care of it for him to make sure that his tweets are balanced and smooth. He's like doing it on his own. And sometimes he's like tweeting stuff that nobody thinks that any politician should do. Like 2 days ago, he was tweeting about making some additional sanctions on Russia. Today, he's like saying, no, until we are very angry, we won't do anything. But it affects the whole world. It affects the whole Europe, the US economy, the Switzerland economy, the Russian economy. It affects everybody because he's got like 5 seconds of time and he's just pushing a tweet, not caring too much. So the first conclusions I have is that there is a lot of code online. There's a lot of online applications that have access to our data, and looks like there's not enough experts. And the result is easy. We're just getting hacked. There's like a company which is called Fortinet. They're having like a quarterly report. Just an example for first quarter 2017. How many? 80% of automated attacks exist. Their Android malware is rising. Then there's the next quarter. Then there's the next one. This one is quite nice because they're saying about like Equifax that we go later, that lost 150 million of records of US citizens. That the patching prioritization is a problem. That the companies don't have like a prioritization on doing the patches. And then in the last quarter, how many, here is it. So how many unique variants of malware exist? How many different families? They got it somewhere over here that one of the exploit that happens, where is it? Was done because of something that they were referencing to in previous report, previous quarter. Like one of the companies didn't update the Apache servers, didn't have the priority on that. And then the Equifax, the 150 millions that were lost were because of not correct patching. There is a guy who's named Troy Hunt. He's like one of the best security experts that exists. And he's got a page that's called haveibeenpwned.com. And he's trying to get the databases of every hijacking account that exists and pushing everything on that page. And what that page has, there's like a counter over here. So he's got like databases for 228 web pages who has been hacked. And he's got like almost 4 billion accounts on it. So this is a screenshot from over a year ago. It's a lot bigger currently. And you can just provide your username or email address, and you can check if your account has been hacked. If you have the time later or any other day, you can try it. Again, okay. So if we go for the 5 biggest attacks that happened so far. So the first one was Yahoo in 2013. So they lost a lot of user account information, and every year since that time, they admit that the database they lost was bigger and bigger. So they were starting from saying that they lost a few hundred of accounts. The year after it was over 1 million. I think that currently they say that it was over 10 million accounts that they lost. Probably in a few years they will agree that there was more. Then there was the Mirai attack in August 2016. So this was the denial of service that hit a lot of telecom operations, or OVH and other applications. The WannaCrypt, who doesn't heard of it? Around 60 organizations worldwide was affected. Then was the Equifax. So this was like the problem that give like 150 millions of data about the US citizens and British citizens and Canadians, about the social security numbers, the date of birth, the address. And there was the Petaya. How big was the effect of this in Russia? Did you felt like affected by Petaya? So from UK perspective, most of our employees were forbidden to connect to the network outside of the VPN. Like on daily basis, we were allowed to use connection to our infrastructure without the VPN, but on the week or 2 weeks when Petaya was online, we were totally banned from it. So we can only do it through VPN, and we've got like special connection done between the Polish office and UK office, and nobody could access any infrastructure from home. And it was like a very scary thing that happened. So the security is important. It's very good to have like at least single layer of confirmation, how the security should be provided and how to run it. So my first idea, I was asked to run, this is called like the Microsoft patching, happens every month. So Microsoft releases patches for Windows and all other IIS and other stuff applications every month. And my organization had like a standard regression for all the PCI applications. So they asked me to do it once, and I said to them that if you ask me to do it manually again, I'm not doing it. So they told me, if you want to automate it, let's try to automate it. So my idea was to use the WebDriver. Should we go in details about the WebDriver, or we can just do it briefly? How many of you are familiar with the WebDriver? You use it on a daily basis. Yeah, so let's do it in a short way. So basically this is like a solution that you can use through any browser, operating system. You can automate your tests. When you do it from the WebDriver, you can use library that exists in Python, Java, .NET or Perl or PHP. And then you can run the tests. Again, any of the web browsers. You can use Browser Stack or Source Labs, like a vendor of different environments with different combinations of the operating systems and the browsers. And it's easy to use it on Windows, Linux, Mac, any platform that you want to. And it's free. This is like an example of the code. Pretty easy, like we used like before test and after. You open a Firefox driver, go to google.com, you find an element, click on it, send a sentence inside of it, and then click on search. And after you just quit the driver, you can make some asserts, whatever you want to. It's pretty easy. How many of you know any security scanners? Which one? Like OWASP Zap?
Kali Linux. Kali Linux.
This is like something that got it inside, yeah. Any others?
Verb Suite.
Okay. Any more?
Nexus.
Okay. Does it work as a proxy, the Nexus? I never use it.
So maybe Nexus. Nexus. Sorry. Another one. Spider.
Okay. So I will use like OWASP Zap in here. So you've got like an OWASP, I would not call it a project, like a community. And there's like a bunch of projects over there. So there's like Zap. This is a web proxy server that you can use for security scanning. There's like OWASP WebGoat. This is an environment that you can host on your computer to make an app that you can practice your security testing against. OWASP is releasing a bunch of reports, like OWASP Top 10, like top 10 vulnerabilities. There was like the latest top 10 was released last year, sorry. So the proxy of OWASP ZAP, it's something that goes between the website, which is hosted on your infrastructure, and your application. So you run like a ZAP instance on your machine. You set up your browser to use it as a proxy. So every request that the browser makes goes through ZAP and again goes to the server. And every response is also going through ZAP and goes back to the browser. So the security scanner is scanning everything that happens in between. He's starting to be like a man in the middle between the browser and the server. It collects all the data that goes through it, and then it allows themselves to interpret it, to run a bit of tests against it, and to do the first level of scanning and give you the first level of results, how secure your application is. So like going through the basic information about it, it's open source and it's free to use. It has over 25 different languages that can be used like in whatever language you need to. It's translated to Polish, English, Russian, German, most modern languages. It is working as a proxy. It even allows you to go through HTTPS traffic. So it is decoding, if your web page is HTTPS related, so it's a secure one, you can still upload the certificate from ZAP. And you can decode that kind of traffic through it. I will give you a simple instruction in a few next slides. It's a cross-platform, so it's written in Java, but it's basically available to use in any operating system. So you can run it on Windows, you can run it on Linux, like Kali Linux is an example of distribution which is already embedded like the ZAP and the burp suite and a lot of other different security tools. And the features, like it has the proxy server in it, it has Ajax web crawlers, it has automated scanner, passive scanner, forced browsing. If it finds any SQL injections or CSRF or anything like this, it allows you to reproduce it easily or create like CSRF related form just to make a double check, manual double check if you are able to run, if it's a false positive or you are able to run a successful attack on your application. It allows you to stop the communication with the server at any point. You can replay the request from your browser, then you can stop it on ZAP, make a breakpoint in it, manipulate with it, and then send it to the website. So it supports all the manual security testing that you can do on top of the automated security scanning. And it has a plugin-based architecture. So there's like a bunch of plugins available. There's like a marketplace when you can download like a plugin with most popular English dictionary passwords or any combination of passwords for the brute force or any other plugins. So there are many plugins included in the marketplace which are correlated with different types of attacks that you can run on your application. So like a simple instruction that will help you if you have like HTTPS application on your site or web page. When you want to make it available, so you open ZAP, you get something like this. So here is like the list of web pages which are used. Here are the requests and responses that are got through. And you go to the options. You just generate a certificate, save it on desktop or whatever location you want to. You go to your web browser. I'm using Firefox as an example. You can do it on any different browser that you want to try it. or you can do it on a level, like in Windows you've got like a operating system certificate store, so you can do it through the whole system. In preferences, you can view the installed certificates of your browser, and then you can import the certificate that you just generated and saved. You just mark that you should trust that certificate. All the questions like to identify website, email addresses, and software developers. And then what it does, when you run your application, which is using HTTP, it's decoding the responses, so you see the header and the body of the responses and the requests, even if it's made through the secure protocol. And that allows you to do the testing and not being blocked just because this is a HTTPS web page. You can do it on any web page you want to. So you can still run your automation out of the web driver. And if it goes through HTTPS pages, if there's a ZAP proxy behind it, then it decodes everything, so he can still scan through your secure pages. This is an example of the UI. So here you've got like the web application that was used through the testing, and then there you get the lists of requests and responses that were collected. So you can see that there was going through some folders, collecting some resources, pictures and other stuff. Then you can see, you can check on the request details and response details, what was the header, what was inside, and you can break at any moment, and you can try to replay the same request and see if the response is the same or different. Then there's a lot of additional data that you can see at the bottom. So for free at the beginning, you can see the alerts in which you got a list of possible findings that ZAP was found from just intercepting the traffic. Then you've got all the details about the alert you choose. The things that you can do on top of it, it goes included spiders. The spiders allow the ZAP to search through your web app for additional resources and additional files. And then you can do fuzzy testing or do any kind of additional testing you want. And if you then can export the result in an HTML report, and it just consists a huge list of vulnerabilities that were found. If they were like medium, high, or low type of vulnerability, like usually the vulnerabilities from the top 10 oversplits are high, our others are medium or low, depending of how big the impact it can do based on your system. And then you get the URL, sometimes you get the parameter which is being affected, and you got the description. Sometimes you even at the bottom you get possible fixes that you can apply to your system. So it gives you all the insight possible. It gives you the way how you can try to reproduce it. And then you can just sit down with developers, go through that list and check it. So one of the downsides of this solution is that automated security scanners have a lot of false positives. So they assume that something is a potential vulnerability, but it's not. Usually it's almost 80% of the findings, but they're pretty similar, so it's really easy to spend the time with developers to just filter them out. So when we try to do it for the first time and we use that solution, we needed to invest full 3 days to go through all the high and medium findings and just filter out all the false positives. But the good thing was that we only ended up with 3 or 4 findings that needed a fix. And to be PCI DSS compliant, we need to go through pen testing on every single year to extend the certificate. And from the moment we start using this ZAP and we go through the list and we just keep moving forward. We never get a new finding from an audit that was done through external pen testing. So safely, no pen testers found anything more that the ZAP could find. It was a good solution for our application because in history we've got a lot of risks and problems with the audit. So the easiest connection, how to do it. I will not go through it in details, but I gave you will get the slides from the organizers. This is the way how you need to change running of your web browser instead of like only doing browser new Firefox profile. You should add like setting for Firefox, for example, proxy, and then just apply all the settings regarding the changing the traffic for the HTTP and HTTPS to a different port. Behind it, the ZAP will be listening. And the same example goes for the Selenium 3.0. So I was using, where is the name of it? Like a Gecko driver over here. And then there's a little bit more complicated part around the certificate. So instead of only changing the traffic, you need to add the capability to accept all SSL certificates to decode HTTPS through the Marionette. And the solution that we found at the end was that we were having a build tool that was having, this was Jenkins. There was a job running all the automated tests from a web driver through the browser and also opening a ZAP in behind. And there was the applications against which we were testing. And at the end, this was the whole solution that was running on weekly basis, giving us like automatic results of the security scans. We were then checking it against the Confluence page with all the lists of known false positives, just double checking if there's anything new. And if there was, just then do the manual security testing around if it's a false positive or not. And then the fixing. So, are there any questions? I will try to switch to Slido. Can you change HTTP response in ZAP?
We should show it on the screen.
Why is it not? Oh, okay.
F11.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, now it works. So, can you change the response? Yes, you can, but we never needed to do that. So to check the application that you are testing against, usually you should modify the HTTP request and check if the application responds the same way or if it gives a different response. If you change the response inside ZAP, so it's only on the level between ZAP and your web browser, it doesn't show any vulnerability from the server perspective or the web app perspective. It only gives you idea what will happen if you get certain response. So this is more giving you an ability to use it in a way more similar to like a mocking server, but it doesn't do anything from the security perspective. What kind of tools? Why is it not disappearing? Okay. What kind of tools do you use for searching PCI data in application storages? So one of the things that is a bit different from our application, we do not store PCI data inside of it. So our application is only collecting that data and pushing it through the payment gateway.
What is the evidence of that?
Sorry?
According to PCI DSS standards, you should provide some evidence of that you don't store any data.
Yeah, so, okay. So the evidence that we do is giving the whole schema of the data flows. And we just separate which kind of data is being used, but by what kind of elements. and we provide the PCI auditors with the information that the telephony servers are collecting the PCI data, but then the whole that DTMF signaling is being built in a packages and sent over to gateway, so it never reaches our infrastructure or web application or anything, because it all goes directly from the telephone to the payment gateway. We don't validate that card numbers. We don't validate if that card number is correct according to the cardholder name that we are having in our request, because we leave all that validation to payment gateway. So we are like level 1 from PCI DSS perspective application, and the payment gateway is at least level 2. And they store it, they have the history of all the transactions and all that stuff. We never have it. Which tools you currently use for iOS automatization now? So we don't have iOS dedicated part of application, because everything is being done through telephony servers on our side. So we don't care, it's not like an application on a telephone, it's just a phone call you are having. So it's ignoring if it's iOS, Android, like a landline or whatever it is. So we don't have it. In my past, when we were trying to automate anything on iOS, we were using, I believe it was Eggplant. Eggplant is a library which allows you to capture or do any kind of automation around the user behavior. And we were having two parallel Jenkins jobs. One was building the application as a release candidate without the Eggplant library, and the second one was including the Eggplant library. So we were running all the automation tests against this one with additional library in it, but then the release candidate was the separate one. What type of tests? Wait a moment. How you automate building ZAP reports in your CI. Okay, so ZAP has sort of command line interface, and there's also a ZAP scripting interface. So you can open ZAP and configure it through like command line, and you can make a command line also to ask him to generate HTML reports to the chosen path of the server on which it's currently running. So you can just make, from a Jenkins perspective, you can make like operating system command step in your job, in which you would do it like as a simple command line tool, like command prompt in Windows, for example, and then you can use this ZAP specific way of handling the operations to ask him to run the report export at the end of the whole scanning procedure. What type of tests are you running through a WebDriver? Is it usual UI tests or some special security tests? No, the WebDriver is having only like a usual UI tests through the all UIs of the PCI applications. And the only thing that happens is there is the ZAP proxy in between it. It captures all the traffic, and then there's the automated scanning that is done based on all the use cases that we have used with our WebDriver automation. So if you got WebDriver in your project, if you just add the ZAP in it, you just make the difference in redirecting the traffic, you get like a first layer of automation scanning like for free without too much of investment. How do you prefer provide reports after you turn off Selenium? If of us provide something for it or using something custom. So we always do manual walkthrough the HTML report. We check it against the list of known false positives to filter them out, and then if there's any new finding, we are just manually security testing it, and then we can double check. If it's a false positive, then we add it to the list on the Confluence page. If it's not, then we are applying a fix, and then just rerunning the whole list of tests again on your request, so you can mismatch. ZAP scans only your request. Yeah, that's the part that happens. So it only goes through our requests, but so I never worked as a pen tester, so I'm not sure how much other things he's checking through the PCI DSS audit, but he didn't found anything. So for now, our assumption is that this was enough for us, at least for getting like level 1 of PCI DSS. And we never bothered about anything that happens not through the browser that we are using. So it's hard for me to comment it because I'm not like security expert to certain level. That probably maybe the person that asked that question want to add anything or okay. Can you provide real-life example of how Zap helped you find an issue? Okay, so it was pretty easy. We've got one of the first results was that we've got a setting on validation of parameters that there was a possibility to do an SQL injection in one of the parameters in the form that we had, and we double-checked that. So the easiest way to double-check that manually was because there is like the template of attack is provided by Zap, so it was showing to us that if we provide 2 plus 2 inside that form, then it allows to make an sum of it. So the easiest way to double check it from the manual perspective was that we provide that value 2 plus 2. Then on the web browser we open the DevTools. We just run that request, and inside the DevTools of the application, inside the console, we found that it was sending 4 instead of 2 plus 2. So it was making that, that kind of operation. So it was allowing the attacker to try any other kind of operation inside of this field, and we just switched the implementation to collect that value as a straight string. And then it was storing 2 plus 2 inside our database, so we were not feeling insecure about it. Do we have the time, or should we?
Don't have any more.
Okay.
Maybe you can finish that question session during the break, if you still wanted to answer some questions.
Feel free to ask me.
Thank you very much. It was a really nice speech.
Thank you.